Hey everybody, what's happening? I'm Steven.
And I'm Spencer.
From Nexus Youth and Family Services, and today we want to bring you a topic regarding marijuana. First and foremost, before we jump into this, we want to let you know that we don't condone the use of marijuana for anybody under the age of 21. We got a lot of information we're going to try and give to you in a short amount of time, so we're just going to jump right into this.
So first off, let's start by talking about the two main chemical components that make up marijuana. First one is CBD, or cannabidiol, and this is the the chemical ingredient that has the medicinal purposes within the plant. And then we have THC, which is tetrahydrocannabinol, and this is the psychoactive ingredient that gives the person the feeling of the high or the elation.
Absolutely. And so obviously the topic is marijuana, and we've got a very cheesy slide that has a bunch of different names on it. Obviously you have Mary Jane or weed or devil's lettuce or pot. Very basic names, and we do this because we want you to know some of the names that you might not be familiar with in case you're in a situation where you hear it and you're like, maybe I shouldn't be here. I'm trying to make good, healthy decisions for my life, not just for not using it, but maybe surrounding yourself with people. So we want to just show you a couple names. That way you can make a good decision on whether or not you want to partake in that conversation or even be around people that are talking about it or doing it. So
usually here, this would be where we kind of pool the class and see, ask the question, why do people your age use marijuana? It's a fair question, but since we're not in class with you guys right now, we kind of made up another slide that has some of the most frequent answers that we receive from young people. One of the big ones is right here in the middle and the top. It says to relieve feelings of anger, anxiety, depression, and or stress. Unfortunately, that is a way that a lot of people tend to want to deal with those kind of things in life, which is using marijuana, using alcohol, using drugs. But one thing to remember, guys, is using these kind of things to deal with that kind of stress doesn't make that stress go away.
Yeah.
It doesn't make that depression go away. It doesn't make your anger and your anxiety just disappear. It just kind of masks it for a little while.
Absolutely.
But it's not going to make it better. It's not going to fix your problems. Your best way to do that is find somebody to talk to and get some help that you may need.
Yeah, and these are coping skills that people use that just typically aren't healthy for you. So if you can find a good coping skill that will help you, whether it's lifting weights or having that friend to talk to, that's kind of a big thing.
Yep. Another one up here is for the medicinal purposes or self-medication. Important to remember that as far as medicinal purposes go, it's still illegal for anybody under the age of 18 to be receiving medical marijuana. Now, as far as self-medicating goes, we hear that from people a lot. Oh, I need it for this, I need it for that, whatever it may be. Again, it's not a good coping mechanism. It's not good to self-medicate with any type of drugs, marijuana included. Another one is wanting to fit in or feeling that peer pressure. Maybe there's some friends around you that do it. Maybe you have family that does it. That's another one here is curious because of adult use. Could be a family member, older brother, older sister, maybe mom and dad, grandparents, whatever. So it could be that curiosity or that feeling of peer pressure. There's people around you doing it, so you want to try it. Same thing goes here with the family and their friends using it to escape or relax. Again, that's not good. That's not a good coping skill. You need to find a healthy coping skill for that. If you need to escape, find yourself a healthy way to do that instead of using marijuana. As we know, inhaling any kind of smoke or anything like that into your lungs is bad for your health. Helping with sleep, recreational use, all different things that we've heard from young people. And again, like we said, we don't condone. There's a reason that places like California that have now made it legal for recreational use have set an age limit for that. It's because your brain is still continuing to develop, and it's not fully developed yet until you're about 23 to 25.
Absolutely. And so this next slide is just a quick slide to give you an idea of the areas where it's still illegal, where it's open for, or marijuana use is used for medical use, and then the dark green ones, which is kind of the West Coast and over towards the middle of the country, we have a little bit where it's legalized for recreational and medical use. And obviously, us being California, we have some different laws and things which we will cover, but this is not, as a federal law, it is not legalized. Marijuana is not legalized for anybody. So it is important that we understand that California laws differ from Nevada and any other bordering states as well.
Definitely. So let's go over some of the laws that were made when marijuana was legalized in California. So as I said earlier, you must be 21 years or older to purchase or use recreational cannabis. This includes smoking it, vaping it, or eating cannabis-infused products or foods. So it's pretty much the same thing as alcohol. You gotta be 21 to use it. You cannot possess more than 28.5 grams of plant material or up to 8 grams of concentrated cannabis. Concentrates being the dabs and waxes, hash, things like that. It is still illegal to give or sell retail cannabis to minors. It's also illegal to drive under the influence of cannabis. So what they're actually working to do right now, the California Highway Patrol has been working for a little while since the law was passed to figure out a kind of field sobriety test they could put out for people who they feel might be under the influence of cannabis while driving around. And then the consequences of that would be very similar to what the consequences are for driving under the influence of alcohol and things like that. It is illegal to consume, smoke, eat, or vape cannabis in public. So unfortunately, one of the things that people thought when marijuana was made legal, they thought it would be like cigarettes, where you just walk around smoking it. It is not. Even if you're over the age of 21, you cannot walk around in public using marijuana, just like you can't walk around in public drinking a beer if you're over the age of 21. Also illegal, it's called an open container in public. It is illegal to open a package containing cannabis or any other cannabis product in public, and this includes, but is not limited to, parks, sidewalks, businesses, and any residential areas that have such laws posted. A little bit more about the California laws. It's illegal to consume cannabis in other locations where smoking is illegal. So anywhere, any parks or anything where they say no cigarette smoking, that also means no marijuana smoking. This includes bars, restaurants, buildings, any buildings open to the public, places of employment, or areas within 15 feet of doors or ventilation openings. And even though it is legal under California laws, you cannot consume or possess cannabis on federal lands like national parks, even if it is in California. So among the areas that are federal lands in the San Francisco Bay Area are Presidio, Alcatraz Island, the Marine Headlands, and Ocean Beach. So places like that you still can't use or possess cannabis at all because it is still illegal at a federal level, guys. You can consume cannabis on private property. Property owners and landlords may ban the use and possession of cannabis on their property. So if you're somebody who rents or you have an apartment, things like that, if the landlord says, you can't use marijuana on the property, even if the person is over the age of 21, you can't use it there. That's the landlord's rule. That's going to be in your lease. You can't violate the lease. It is still illegal to take cannabis across state lines, even if you are traveling to another state where cannabis is legal. So that's very important to remember. And only state licensed establishments may sell any kind of cannabis products. So they have to have a license from the state, a business license from the state in order to sell their cannabis products.
And it's really important that you guys understand those laws because a lot of times when we're in class, we hear you guys give us some information and stuff that's just not accurate. And so we want to give you as much of that information as possible that's accurate. So,
and we're aware, guys, that those laws don't apply to you yet because you're not 21, but they may apply to somebody in your family who may be giving you that false information.
Absolutely. And so on here, we want to talk a little bit about how 20% of high school students surveyed had used marijuana in the last 30 days. Now, that doesn't seem like a lot, and that's great. 20% said, hey, we did use it. They were honest, and that's the one part that we're grateful for is they were honest about it. But the part I want to talk about briefly is the other 8 people. That means 80% of you that were polled said, no, we didn't use it. So they could be lying, or they could just be forthright and say, you know what, we have not used marijuana in the last 30 days. 80%. So that kind of dispels the notion that everybody is doing it. Now, like I said, maybe 1 or 2 people are not telling the full truth, but the reality is the majority of people are still not using marijuana. It could be for different reasons. It could be because of athletics. It could be because of vaping. It could be a bunch of different reasons. But the reality is 80% of high school students that were polled had not used marijuana in the last 30 days, and that's really important. And then next, the question or the thing that we always get, not even a question really, is more of a statement, is like marijuana is not addictive. Nobody asks us, they just tell us.
Tell us, yeah.
And that's actually incorrect. Marijuana can be extremely addictive. It is addictive. If you're needing to use marijuana or any substance to get through your day, for instance, I know people who wake up every morning and they have to have a cup of coffee. I would say that they're addicted to coffee to be able to get their day going. So if you or somebody you know says, oh, they have to use marijuana on a daily basis to just make it through the day, or I just like it, so that's why I do it all the time, well, that would be an addiction. And so marijuana can be addictive. Also, 1 out of 6 youth users become addicted. Now, part of the reason that this is because of the reward pathway in your brain and how it's hijacked, and basically what's happening is the drug is saying, hey, we're going to take this over, and the senses are like, hey, this is awesome, and then what your body naturally produces is not being produced anymore. And so your body craves that feeling, and that's where the marijuana and whatever other substance just kind of takes that away from you. And so the cool thing is, like I mentioned before, 80% were not using marijuana in the last 30 days. This means 5 people that use marijuana will not become addicted. That does not mean, or doesn't give you the right to say, well, I'm just going to use it. Like we mentioned, marijuana is illegal for anybody under the age of 21. But we are thankful and glad that 5 out of 6 will not become addicted. Now, the one, we want to make sure that if you need help, and maybe you don't need to tell us right now, or you want to tell your teacher, or you want to reach out to somebody, we'll put our information at the end of this video, and you can go ahead and contact us, and we'll see if we can help you in some way. Because 1 out of 6 still means somebody in our community, the youth in our high schools, are actually becoming addicted to marijuana, and we want to be a resource for you guys.
So let's talk a little bit about marijuana usage amongst teens. There are about 3.1 adolescents aged 12 to 17, so it's about 1 in 8 youth guys use marijuana in the past year. 11.8 million young adults 18 to 25 use marijuana in the past year. 14% of 8th graders reported having used marijuana at some point in their life. It goes up to 33% of 10th graders, 44% of 12th graders, and 22% of 12th graders reported using marijuana in the past month. And it says 6% of 12th graders here, about 1 in 16, they use marijuana on a daily basis. This is from a recent study that was done. It just kind of shows you that as young people get older, they tend to become more susceptible to using marijuana. And like I said, once you become susceptible to using it, you start using it maybe more frequently, then it becomes susceptible to addiction because your brain is not fully developed yet, and it can really take a hold of your brain.
But like I mentioned earlier, right? The majority of people are not using marijuana, and so that's the big thing, is not everybody's doing it. So if your friend gives you the notion like, hey, come on, man, everybody's doing it, that's not true. Not everybody in your circle might be doing it, but not everybody is doing it. So we just want to give you guys a heads up on that. And also, when it comes to the marijuana, as Spencer mentioned in the beginning, there's the CBD and then there's the THC. And the THC is that psychoactive component that gives you the high. And so the THC levels, they continue to increase while the medicinal part, the CBD, has decreased. So everybody's like, oh, I'm using it for medicinal. Well, what we've seen is they have basically grown these strands to breed out the CBD and increase the THC. Studies done in the 1970s show a THC level were between 3 and 5%. But we know that today's marijuana has a THC content between 12 and 20%, which is significantly higher, almost 4 times higher. And then we also see the concentrates are anywhere between 80 and 95%. And sometimes they're even getting a little bit higher than that. So they're consistently trying to change things. So this is not the same marijuana that was being used in the 60s and 70s. This stuff is much more potent, has much more of an effect on your body, on your brain, especially in your adolescent years.
Definitely. So some of the different effects that marijuana can have on your body. First one is being drowsy or lightheaded. That can hit almost immediately. Next one is bloodshot and foggy vision. And that's one of the ways that police officers and people like that, and even your teachers, people like us, can tell if somebody's been using marijuana. If you see bloodshot eyes, it's almost a dead giveaway, like, hey, let's talk about what's going on. Another one is dry mouth. People who use marijuana tend to become very thirsty very quickly. The marijuana dries their mouth out. Another one is actually does increase your heart rate. A lot of people don't realize that, and that's where like the anxiety and the panic can kind of sometimes set in. And the next one is your muscles are slackened. So that's kind of like the relaxed like feeling that some people will get from it, but could also, muscle slacken means that your reaction time is slowed by a lot. So if you were in a car driving, your reaction time is going to be slowed. If you're playing a sport, your reaction time is going to be slowed. And if your reaction time is slowed, either in a car or while you're playing a sport, you're more susceptible to any kind of injury.
Absolutely. It could be extremely dangerous for you.
Most definitely.
And so now we want to talk a little bit about your brain, and we know that we've mentioned it here and there, but there are 2 different things that we're going to show you. The first one is your adolescent brain right now. And this looks crazy, and this is basically a highway in Los Angeles. And basically, as you are growing, your body is taking these connectors from one place to another. So they're moving all over the place. Your brain's developing and changing and helping you remember things for the long term. Short term, long term, whatever it might be. These connectors are going there for a specific reason. They have a purpose. But as we mature, what happens is our brain slows things down. They create more permanent routes, more permanent roads that allow the connection to go from point A to point B without all this confusion and chaos. The reason we say that is because the development of your brain and your body overall is extremely important. And we know from science that the body and the brain specifically don't mature really until about 22 to 25. Mm-hmm. And so that's important. Like, even though marijuana use is legal at the age of 21, it's not that great for you because you are still susceptible to becoming addicted to it. Your brain is not fully developed, which could hinder your growth, not just short term, but long term as well. So it's really important that you understand that it's not just about a feeling you might get. This actually has potentially long-term effects on you for the information you're able to retain, the things that you're able to do, and hopefully, like you said, an inability to get hurt whether you're playing sports or whatever it might be. We don't want you to have any of that sort of stuff.
Definitely. So another thing we do want to mention and talk about is someone get in class all the time that, oh yeah, marijuana is medicine, right? And it's true. Marijuana does have some medicinal purposes, but it's the CBD that has medicinal purposes, not the THC. But it's also really important to remember, guys, that the FDA, which is the Federal Drug Administration, has still not approved marijuana as any form of medication. So what a doctor can really only do is recommend it for a patient. They can't prescribe it because that would be illegal on a federal level and they could lose their license. Remember, marijuana is still illegal federally. CBD is the ingredient that has the most medicinal uses. Unfortunately, as far as commercial growing operations are going, CBD has been being bred out for a very long time, and THC, what I mean by that is they're breeding plants with high levels of THC and lower levels of CBD. Marijuana is also responsible for the highest number of emergency room visits every year, surpassing all other substances. These could be legal or illegal substances, and that's for a variety of reasons. And we're actually seeing those numbers increase now with these new forms of the concentrates that can be up to, like Steven said, 80 to 95% THC. That's a huge number. And people don't understand what that could do to their bodies or how it could affect them in the short term.
And even the devices they're using, right?
Yeah. We have seen so many different vape devices that people are using to vape marijuana, getting them very, very sick and even killing some people. Marijuana is both addictive and harmful to the human brain, especially when used when you're an adolescent. Like Steven just said, your brain is still developing, so it's important not to hinder that development. Marijuana can also be laced with many different things, which includes lead or other heavy materials, things like fungus, bacteria, PCP, heroin, embalming fluid, LSD, meth, ketamine, and cocaine. So it's important to remember, especially if somebody's buying this kind of drug off the street, you don't know what that person that you're buying it from put in there. You have no idea. They're going to tell you it's one thing. They're going to tell you it's just marijuana, but who knows? There may be something else more heavy in there that could actually cause you to overdose and die. So you got to be really careful about that kind of stuff and just be smart in your decision making, guys.
I actually know somebody who was on probation who went and basically told their probation officer like, hey, I know there's marijuana in my system, and they took a urinalysis, and when they did, the results came back and it actually had multiple other drugs that are listed on here because the marijuana they thought was just marijuana actually was laced with some other things. Mm-hmm. So that put them in a bind as well.
And that's a lot more common than people think.
Absolutely, and that's scary if you've already been in trouble with the law and you think something might come up. Mm-hmm. It's definitely scary. And so we want to talk a little bit more about the pros and cons of the medical marijuana. As Spencer mentioned, the CBD is the component that has the medicinal aspect to it. It's not the THC. So first we can talk about the pros, but we really want to talk about some of the cons that have that as well. Pros, it says prevents nausea by chemotherapy. That is for people that have or are going through chemo, that have cancer. This is not just something that says, oh, I'm feeling nauseous, I should smoke marijuana. That's not what we're saying. There are very few exceptions, and these are some of them. As you'll see, it helps HIV patients regain their appetite. This could also be for those that are going through cancer and chemo because they're losing weight and they need to be able to eat so they can have the weight to have the energy to fight the cancer and whatever chemo they're going through. It could also reduce seizures associated with epilepsy. That's important if you're epileptic and you're of age. If that's some option that you and your doctor choose, then that's up to you. Reduces pressure in the eyes related to glaucoma, mild pain reliever, and then it alleviates the tremors, muscle spasms, and pain of multiple sclerosis. Now, as you notice, these are all related to medical conditions that not every high school student has, not every adult has. It's very few and far between. And so we mentioned it before.
Very specific cases, too.
Very specific. Of age, 21. And then, so let's talk about some of the cons. And this, like, oh man, the positives are great. Let's talk about the cons real quick. So there's the impairment of problem solving and memory and balance. A loss of those. So if you're doing something and you're working, you're like, oh, I'm just going to use medical marijuana, and it's not really for medicinal purposes, and you're not of legal age, this could greatly affect your body, as we talked about the other body effects that it has. It can structurally change your brain. Over consistent time and use, you become addicted and all of that. Then you have the risk of heart attack, chronic cough, and hallucinations. Some of those hallucinations can become from some of the other things that are laced with it, if you don't know exactly where you're getting it from, and things of that nature. It can be, it says, potentially addictive or can lead to other harder drug use. That might be the case. We talked about the reward pathway, and the reason that is because your brain is continuing to develop, and the more it has that sensation, and once that sensation, the more you will try and match that, really. Weakens the respiratory system, and as Spencer mentioned, our lungs aren't created to take things in like smoke from cigarettes or vape or marijuana, so we want to make sure you know that. And then it also compromises the immune system. These are some of the pros and cons of medical marijuana. Now, if you're not 21 and your doctor hasn't recommended this for you, we don't encourage you to self-medicate. We don't encourage that at all. We would encourage you to talk to a medical professional, but realize that the pros that everybody is always talking about are kind of limited in the scope in which they're actually beneficial for people.
Yeah.
So just be paying attention to that. Make sure you do your own research. Mom and dad probably are not the leading experts in marijuana, so make sure you do research, good quality research, so you can also get as much information as possible.
Definitely. So guys, this is going to conclude our presentation for the day. And like kind of Stephen talked about at the very beginning of the presentation, we wanted to give you guys as much information as we possibly could, so that if the time comes along and somebody offers it to you, you know what it could do to your body, you know what it could do to your brain, and you can make an intelligent decision on what you're going to do about that. Now, if you guys have any more questions or just want to chat with us about anything in regards to this topic or any topic we bring to you, please give us a call. Our phone number is 209-257-1980. Listen for my extension, Spencer Dutschke, or Stephen's extension at Stephen Hartman. Also, check out our YouTube page, Nexus Youth and Family Services. And as always, guys, stay healthy and stay safe.